markets. We begin here at home, where the federal government yesterday disclosed that it has taken delivery of 255 tractors out of the 2,000 it signed with a private firm about a year ago to be distributed to farmers. Agriculture and Food Security Minister Senator Abubakar Kyari, who made this known while addressing newsmen at the State House on government's moves, to bring down food inflation, currently at about 34%, also stated that the government has commenced plans for the reorganization and recapitalization of the Bank of Agriculture, which was expected to be completed before the end of the first quarter of 2025. Kyari explained that all the efforts were moves by the President Bola Tinubu administration for its renewed hope agenda geared towards reducing food inflation, increasing food production, and reducing foreign currency expenditure. He further said government was expecting 9,000 sets of spare parts that come with this procurement. So this is a positive development after the promise that had been made by President Bola Tinubu in 2023.
Yes,
yeah.
2023, 2024 reiterated, especially during the budget presentation. Beyond just, the first, of course, is food security for Nigeria. The second then would then be for us to improve the agricultural sector to be able to move away from, as part of a major contribution to the non-oil sector revenue generation. So that is great news. Now, this is not the first time. This had been a deal that had been signed with Belarus. We're expecting at least, believe about 9,000 tractors in all, if I'm correct, 9,000 tractors in all. But this on this round, we have only 255 given. 85 containers, 3 in each containers, meaning 255. What they're saying is they're going to distribute these tractors to smallholder farmers. It doesn't come only with the tractors; it comes with with some maintenance, spare parts, some plows, seeders. It comes with some of the attachments that would make the tractors more effective. Now, this is part of, like you mentioned, food security. Recall that only a few days back, we had talked about the Minister of Agriculture's promise to Nigeria that in 180 days, which would have ended at the end of December into January, Nigerians will have much cheaper food. A lot of people said he wasn't able to keep to that promise, but we've seen that there might have been some delays that have occurred. We've often talked about some of the interventions that must happen in the agricultural sector if we're going to see an improvement. What people are saying is that Nigeria is rich, blessed with natural resources in terms of our, the arability of our soil and the willingness of our farmers. But there are a number of factors that have continued to make that sector impossible to not only feed the nation, but also generate profit. According to United Nations statistics, by 2050, Nigeria would be the most populated nation on earth. In order to feed the nation, we need to shore up agricultural production by 60%. The Bola Tinubu administration has a lot of work on its hands. Aside from the benefit to putting food on the table of Nigerians, there's also the benefit for creation of jobs. We know that the agricultural sector presents an opportunity to provide jobs and for job creation. So a number of things. So beyond the provision of tractors, I recall that even as part of the interventions, they've also distributed, fertilizer and helped farmers in that area. Past administrations have tried to provide credit. The talk about the recapitalization of the Bank of Agriculture is long overdue. We've been talking about how one of the main things that our smallholder farmers or farmers at large would need to help would be access to credit, which a lot of them have complained that they don't have. And that's why the Bank of Agriculture was created. So if they're able to do that, fantastic. We'll see more farmers being able to have access to credit and able to expand their production. Beyond that, we've talked about, even on the larger scale, security. Now, the CDS has continuously assured Nigerians that they have done a lot of work in ensuring that farmers are able to go back to their farms and be able to eliminate threats of violence, the header clashes that have occurred in the past, which have significantly contributed to the scarcity of food that we've seen and the production we've seen on our farms. So it would be great to also address that and to ensure that the farmers are protected and assured to be able to go back to their farms. We also talk about issues around technology. We cannot continue to live in the 19th century when others have moved far away to mechanized farming. In that speech, I talked about using drones to improve production. I'm hoping that it won't just be talk shop, that this government will make concerted efforts to investment in technology for our farmers. We also talk about transportation, the entire value chain. What often happens, and we've seen videos like that, is that even when the produces come, most of them get spoiled on the farm because at the end of the day, there's no storage facility, there are no opportunities for them to transport, and then the cost of transportation is quite high. So those are some of the factors that must be put into place. So whilst we celebrate these 255 tractors, which is just 10%, 2,000 is what is expected, just 10% of what is expected from Belarus, we must also look at the other areas to ensure that we're able to shore up agricultural produce and that Nigeria as a nation, before we even begin to talk about export and generating revenue from the agricultural sector, is able to feed itself as a nation. It's possible. We have places like Benue, the food basket of the nation. We have areas like the north central states who are able to produce, but unfortunately are not empowered to do so in Nigeria.
Absolutely. Very well said. And I'm glad you emphasized the fact that it's just 10% of what's expected.
Yes, 2,000.
It's just 2,000 is the commitment that was made in a deal valued at about 2.9 billion naira. And this entire journey to receiving these 2,000 tractors began in 2023. Now, the first thing that sticks out for me is that this is a victory for the House of Reps. Why is it a victory for the House of Reps? Because in December, they entered into a probe. A motion was moved to enter into a probe. It was sponsored by Saba Adam, the member from a constituency in Kwara State, who said that how is it possible that these tractors that were promised in 2023, July of 2023 to be specific, have still not arrived. This inquiry began on the 14th of December 2024. Well, it's good to see that just a month later, we've taken delivery of these things. So why do I say it's a victory for the House of Reps? Because it seems that their probe into this and their pushing for this has still not released the 2,000 as promised, but at least we're seeing 255 out of that deal valued at 2.9 billion naira. Now, this is what we want to see our National Assembly doing. We want to see our National Assembly questioning, holding the executive accountable, and ensuring that those commitments that are made are delivered. So this is a victory for them. However, it's incomplete. Yes, there are combined harvesters that have been delivered. There are also some spare parts. There are some trailers as well that have been delivered. As much as more will be expected, that delivery has been made. However, there's still the deal called the AfTrade DMCC deal, still with this company in Belarus, that is supposed to establish tractor manufacturing plants here in Nigeria. This particular deal was signed in 2023 as well, valued at 138 billion naira. So we asked the Ministry of Agriculture, where are we with this? It took over a year just to deliver 200 tractors. So how many years is it going to take for us to implement this tractor assembly plant that will not only bring some sort of relief to the agricultural sector and contributes towards food security, but it will also create much needed jobs. So that is a very important conversation to have. Now, on the outlook of agriculture and food security in 2025 as a whole, of course, we do expect the minister to be optimistic about the outlook. We don't expect him to paint a picture of doom and gloom. However, our job here is to also ensure that we hold you accountable and we bring some of the other elements that need to be considered. While we're presenting a very optimistic outlook, let's also look at the fact that beyond tractors, beyond mechanization, beyond sharing of fertilizer, beyond the fact that, yes, the minister did acknowledge that there is a robust defense budget and that indications are that there will be more done to ensure that farmers can return to their land this year. There are the non-security related factors. Let's talk about the impact of the collapse of the Alau Dam last year. 700,000 hectares of arable farmland were lost due to the flooding caused by that. The general flooding that happened last year, apart from the Alau Dam, from rain and from other factors, caused 250,000 farms to be affected. So we're looking at 700,000 hectares of land, 250,000 farms affected by floods, millions of people displaced. So my question is, what are the interventions that we are making with regards to climate change? The flooding issue has become an incessant issue every year. NEMA has gotten better at disaster response. However, we still have not found the solution as to how we will secure our farmlands when it comes to climate change issues. What is the technology we're employing with regards to this? Are we looking at greenhouse farming? Are we looking at elevating certain areas so that they won't be prone to flood? Has anybody gone to look at the path that the flood waters follow so that we can remove farmland from those areas and ensure that our farmers invest outside of those areas? Those are some of the conversations to have. Now, as much as it is commendable that there is an emphasis on smallholder farmers and more subsistence farming, it's also very important for us to know the kind of interventions that are being made for some of our large-scale farmers, our commercial farmers, because yes, as much as the small-scale farmers contribute immensely to the economy, if we have several well-functioning, well-mechanized, well-structured and organized commercial farms, that is enough to create a value chain. It means that the investment made in a value chain is more structured to get food across the country. Remember, we're looking at a desired or shall I say I can't call it a predicted, but a desired inflation rate of 15%. And a lot of this banks on what we do with food inflation. So just some things to consider. We congratulate the arrival of these tractors. We're still looking forward to the 1,000 plus more and to the establishment of the tractor assembly plant. Now to other news today. General Hydrocarbons Limited, in response to First Bank's statement last night, provided more details on how First Bank of Nigeria's failure to pay its pending requests according to contract terms led to an international incident in 2023, which nearly claimed the lives of 93 persons working on the oil rig. These details were contained in the accounts provided by GHL as part of her right of reply. The response, however, followed repeated allegations of diversion of funds leveled against GHL in a public statement issued by FBN. According to GHL, on October 7, 2023, the drilling rig Blackford Dolphin ran out of fuel, food, and other critical supplies with 93 persons on board, a critical situation which almost warranted declaring Mayday. Now, during the life-threatening incident, both the managing director and executive director of the bank were reportedly abroad, while the current managing director, chief executive Olusegun Alebiosu, who was then the chief risk officer, acted for the managing director when GHL brought the matter to his urgent attention. Alebiosu, GHL stated, then worked the phone, calling suppliers and service providers one after the other and promised to pay within 3 days. Based on FBN's assurances, the service providers made emergency supplies, which the payment never came. However, in a bid to ensure safety of life and continuing security at 75 kilometers offshore Nigeria, GHL entered an irrevocable third-party payment order with one of the off-takers to pay the suppliers directly, a move that helped to stabilize the operation. Now, Ayo, of course, we already know that some of the details around this was that First Bank was making payments directly to service providers and not necessarily to GHL directly. So I think a lot will continue to unravel. There will be more to unpack concerning this. But the one thing we can focus on is the fact that there seemed to have been a lack of due process followed with regards to court orders and respecting court orders.
Absolutely, absolutely. Like you mentioned, Vimbai, there are a lot of revelations coming up. One day, one new information. Both sides have tried to present their sides, at least in terms of the court of public opinion. But I think beyond this, because these are two significant organizations, and the role they play in terms of economic development is quite important. First Bank of Nigeria is the oldest bank in Nigeria. Hydrocarbons is also, General Hydrocarbons, GHL, has also talked about the fact that they're the only Nigerian indigenous organization that goes into the deep sea in terms of offshore exploration. So it's important for both organizations to find an amicable way to sort out these issues. It's in the best interest of the nation. It's in the best interest of people whose lives and dependencies, or whose lives and livelihood depend on these organizations. And for Nigeria in itself, we don't want issues with significant organizations like this Rather, we want to see organizations like this flourish and have come to an amicable settlement so that we can take this off the press and begin to move forward with regards to a resolution.